Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Near Memo with David, Mike, and Greg. This is episode 142, and we will be talking about a lot of Google-related issues today, as we have been for the last several weeks. Today, we'll be talking about the BrightEdge SGE study. Then we're going to be discussing the future of GBP, and finally, whether Google is putting its energies toward the wrong kind of search feature development instead of fixing its main search results, which we'll have some strong views on. So let me lead off with the BrightEdge data today. BrightEdge did a study where they looked at, I don't remember the precise number of queries. It was a lot of queries.
Billions, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was some very large number, 1 billion queries across 9 vertical categories: healthcare, e-commerce, B2B tech, insurance, education, restaurants, entertainment, travel, and finance. And what they were trying to measure was the performance of SGE, the appearance of SGE. So there were 3 states that they tracked. The collapsed state, where you get a portion of the the AI snippet and you have to expand it. The opt-in state, where you have to actually generate the full result, the SGE result. And then the third one is where no SGE result appears at all. And what they found is that there were a range of impacts, hypothetical impacts, with healthcare being the most impacted of the 9 verticals that they looked at, meaning that an SGE result appeared almost 80% of the time, 76% of the time, there was a partial SGE result that you could then expand. And then on the other end of the spectrum is finance, where SGE appeared much less frequently. It appeared in an opt-in state only about 40% of the time. And then more than half of the time, there was no AI result at all. Now, what's curious about these things is that both of these are YMYL categories. So it seems like there isn't a uniform treatment of YMYL. And, in between all the other categories that I read were varying degrees of default SGE appearance versus opt-in and the absence of any SGE result. And, it's an illustration probably of the fluidity of SGE and the continued sort of experimentation that's going on with these results. Now, Ross Hudgens on Twitter had an interesting observation about this. He wasn't talking specifically about this study, but he was talking about SGE in general. And Google talked about some new search features that they rolled out, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. And they referenced SGE in that blog post, and they said it's basically going to continue to be in labs, and we're going to bring the benefits of AI to more people. And so his conclusion was that SGE is really just a kind of staging area for AI results or capabilities or features that Google will roll out sort of over time, but we won't ever see SGE come out of beta or come out of its experimental phase in its current form. Thoughts, comments? Was that coherent? Did I explain it?
I largely agree with Ross, as we've been saying on previous Near Memo podcasts. I've been advising all of my clients, just pay attention, but don't panic. And for goodness sakes, don't build an SEO strategy around SGE. I think it's interesting to pay attention to how things might be different from SGE to organic, which some studies have done, like that Authoritas study a couple weeks ago. So I think it's all very interesting from where might SEO be heading? But I totally agree that this particular visual iteration and even conceptual iteration has been just a pure defense mechanism to signal to the markets that, hey, we have this thing too. Don't freak out over Bing's integration of ChatGPT, and that it will continue to live in labs until Google is forced by external factors to make a more robust and fully baked solution.
Well, as we saw, though, in that blog post that Russ was referencing, they are bringing these other new features, for example, to Android with this, we're going to talk about later, but the circle to search thing. So they're positioning SGE as strictly an experimental environment while they are doing what you're saying, which is bringing additional AI enhanced features to search. Um, so it may be just now that they solved their market problem. Now it just is a cheap way for them to get market feedback, user feedback on various experimental search results that are AI driven, right?
I think that's totally right. I think that's totally
Yep.
right that they've got a big enough group that's opted in, that they're getting good feedback on these different features that they're testing out, and then they're going to piecemeal roll them out over time. And there was a post, I think yesterday, that was talking about, based on stat counter data, that Bing has not moved the needle really at all. That it's any growth is sub 1%, which is still significant in real terms, but effectively, Microsoft's challenge using ChatGPT and Bing Chat has not done anything to displace or capture displace Google or capture new users. So Google essentially has all the time in the world to do whatever it wants with search results, unless some other competitive force, TikTok or something, unbeknownst to us, ChatGPT itself, starts to peel off users. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen in any significant way. So they can just take their time.
I was thinking about your comment about health being the most prominent SGE result.
According to the study, yeah.
To the study, we saw when we did research in health that any health query that wasn't explicitly local was answered by large national sites with very little organic local presence. And that indicates to me that Google has already spent a fair bit of time parsing out medical knowledge, which sites are reputable, all this sort of stuff. And they've probably trained their AI on these very sites so that the AI has this predilection and capability of delivering reasonably good medical results. We've read recently that they're developing an AI medical specific tool to do diagnostics and stuff. So the fact that it is health is predominant in that study, I think, reflects all the work that Google's been doing and what we saw in our research, that you can't compete against this anyways, and so you shouldn't even. No local site should be going
at an informational
level.
Informational
level, correct, right.
The other thing I would add is not only are the informational queries dominated by major healthcare organizations and in some cases governmental bodies like the NIH and
CDC.
NHS in the UK, but not only are they dominated by sites that you'll never displace, they're dominated by the same sites. It's literally the domain diversity for informational healthcare queries is like 15 sites globally that show up for these things. And so, to your point, in terms of being able to train a model, like, it's a very small set, unlike generic queries in categories that are further afield. Like, Google has very clearly identified, okay, this is a small set of sites that put out trusted information about medical topics, and we only have to worry about these. The other thing I'd note is, for years, they've had an explicit partnership with the Mayo Clinic in terms of generating medical knowledge panels, complete with images of procedures and conditions and all these kinds of things. And so likely that partnership involves some sort of licensing by the Mayo Clinic. And I wouldn't be surprised if Google's SGE AI, Gemini, whatever it is like really deeply diving into the Mayo Clinic stuff. The flip side of that is that I do a lot of keyword research in healthcare because I have a couple clients in healthcare. And every single one of these SGEs has a big disclaimer at the top that's like, you should really talk to a doctor about this. So it's like, they are definitely not confident that they're giving non-hallucinatory answers. But Mike, to your point, it's from Google's standpoint, probably a much easier problem to solve in healthcare than you might expect.
Well, that was the point I was going to make, that they did a deal with the Mayo Clinic, I think the Cleveland Clinic, and there were a couple of others, that was a data licensing or content licensing deal. And I think you're totally right that this is how they're training their AI on these kind of licensing partners plus some small subset of other information sources. I would
She
imagine.
reminds me of when they licensed Super Pages data and Yellow Page data. What happened to those guys? Well,
Mm-hmm.
They put them out of business, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the doctors don't need the web to practice medicine. That's the
Yeah,
only
I guess, and I think that theoretically, I don't know this to be true, but I would expect that the Mayo Clinic's business model is not contingent on content.
Data
I would guess
licensing.
that
Yeah.
I would guess that, most of their revenue is coming from probably branded search even, and the percentage of new patients that they convert through their content, which is awesome, is probably pretty small because it ranks for everything. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in 1 billion page views a month, given how well their content ranks and how frequent these medical searches are.
It's kind of the Wikipedia of medical
Yeah.
informational search in a certain way.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.